Welcome to this OpenText Filr video on how to configure your Filr users to use MFA with advanced authentication. So this can be done for your LDAP internal users if you've got the Filr Advanced license, but if you've got the Power External User license, you can also use this for your external users. Let's just log into the Advanced Authentication Administration. So here I'm just going to log in as admin and then use the password we configured earlier. So something we need to do first is set up our user repositories. So if I just click on repositories, I can do a new LDAP repo. And the LDAP type here, I'm actually going against eDirectory, but I could equally go against Active Directory if I wanted. I can give it a name here. I'm just going to call this edir. And then specify a base DN. So this typically would be where my users are under. I'm going to just use a container called Utopia. Then we need a user to connect to LDAP with. So I typically use my Filr proxy user that I'm using for LDAP already. So my one's called Filr proxy. And then let's put in the password if I can remember that. And then optionally, we can put in a container for groups. So this can be quite useful if I've got a group in eDirectory or Active Directory for users that are going to use SMS one-time password or email one-time password. I can set up a group and control which method they're using. At the bottom here, I need to add my LDAP server. So here I'm just going to put in my address, which is 172.17.2.23. I'm going to use port 389. You may want to use a different port at that point if you wanted to. You may want to use a secure port for that and enable SSL. I'm not going to do that in this instance. Then I just check the tick mark to save that. And one last thing I need to do is coming down here in the advanced settings, I need to specify what my attribute is for my mobile phone numbers in eDirectory. I only need to do this if I'm going to be using SMS one-time password as one of the methods. If you're not going to do that, you don't need to set this, but my field is called telephone number there. And then I just need to save this. So I'm just going to click save, and that's come through. Just to check that that's working okay and picking up users, if I just go into edit and do a full synchronization and click OK, let's just check that it's actually picking up some users and indeed groups. So you can see, yep, it's picked up some users and some groups. So that's looking good. That's my LDAP directory set up. Let's just go in now and set up a SQL repository. So I only need to do this if I'm doing MFA for my external users. So let's just set that up here. So the name, let's call this external users. Database type, in this instance I'm using a Postgres SQL that's sitting on my single server install. But it could equally well be going to an MS SQL or Maria MySQL database somewhere, or indeed the Postgres appliance. The database host here is going to be 172.17.2.79, but that will be where the database is running. Database is typically called Filr. You may have called it something else. The user I'm connecting as is Filr. And let's just put in the password for that user. So the table that we're going to be connecting to get our information from is called SS_principals, and the ID column is going to be called ID, and the ID type here, if I'm going against Postgres, is going to be an integer. However, bear in mind if you're using other databases that may be different. I think for MS SQL the ID type is going to be string rather than integer. On the user's name column, we're going to be using email address, and that's going to be a string. And then the phone column is going to be phone, and the email address column is going to be email address. It will validate those settings when I save, but at the moment I'm going to have a problem because I'm running against a single server install which has access to the database restricted to just the local host. If I'm running the database appliance, the Postgres appliance, then that's open and I don't need to do anything, but there are just a couple of things I need to do first for my single server install. Let's just go over to the file appliance and I'm just going to log in here as root. And a couple of things I need to do. First thing is I need to edit a file which allows connections to Postgres. So I'm just going to use VI as my editor, and then the file I need to edit is in VA storage in Postgres and configure or conf, and it's a file called va-pg_hba.conf. So if I just hit return on that, you can see I've got a line here which is restricting access to just the local host, the 127.0.0.1 address. So what I'm going to do now is just open it up for anyone to any address to connect to. You may want to limit this to just your advanced authentication address, but in my instance I'll just open it up for everything. So to make changes to this, I just need to hit I for insert, and then I can delete the 127. Let's do 0.0.0. Get rid of the 1 and put a 0 in its place, and then the 32 I want to get rid of and just call 0 and keep the MD5. To save this, I just need to hit escape, then :W to write it and Q to quit. So that's made those changes there. The next thing I need to do is just get Postgres to pick up those changes. It's still running, so I just need to do a restart on Postgres. So if I just do rc Postgres QL, rc Postgres QL restart, that will restart that. And then finally I need to open up the firewall, because at the moment traffic will be blocked inbound on that. So to do that, I'm just going to run yas2 space firewall, and if I could just come down to the public zone, you can see we've got some inbound traffic available there already. I'm just going to add Postgres to that. So if I come down looking at the different types of ports that can be used, I should have a PostgreSQL, there we go, there, and I'm just going to add that across, and then of course I'm just going to accept that, and that should be written happily enough. If we now just go back to our advanced authentication administration screen, I should be able to save those settings, and there we go, that's been added quite successfully. What we now need to do is just set up some chains, what are called chains, using the different authentication methods that I want to use. So let's just click on chains and do new chain. I'm going to create a chain called Filr email one-time password that uses email one-time password, and then I'm going to create say who's allowed to use this. So I could say a particular group that I've imported from eDirectory, but in this instance I'm just going to say all users, and just save that. And then I'm going to add another chain which is going to be for Filr SMS one-time password, and again that's going to be for all users. And finally I'm going to do a chain for Filr TOTP, and that's just going to be using TOTP, and again all users. I'm going to save that, and now comes the bit that we actually configure the Filr system to use those settings. So we need to set up an event, what's called an event. So I just need to click on the events column here, So I'm just going to create a new event. I'm just going to call this Filr, and the event type is going to be OAuth2, and I'm just going to specify those 3 chains that we created before. Now, doing it this way is that if a user is enabled to use more than one of these chains, they'll get prompted for which chain to use if they've got rights to more than one. So this may be why you may want to limit who's got access to which chain when you were creating the chain. Obviously in my instance I said all users have access to it because I want to show them all working to you. Having done that, we then have to take some settings from here over into Filr. So let's just go into the Filr administration console, and down the bottom on the left hand side I've got a NetIQ advanced authentication option. What I need to do is just put in the server URL of my advanced authentication server, so that's going to be https://aauth.mydemo.biz in my instance. Client ID, so the client ID I need to get from the NetIQ administration, and it's this field here. I just need to copy that and paste that in here, and then I need the client secret, which again I get from here, and in order to see what it is I just need to click on that button on the end and I can copy it. Just be aware that I'm not going to be able to see that after I save this, so either make a note of that if you want to, or you may find you have to recreate it in the future. But let's just paste that in here. Next thing I need to do is I've got these fields here, the redirect URLs in Filr. I just need to copy those from Filr, and I need to paste those into this field. So if I'm going to be hitting that server on more than one host name or the IP address, then I need to repeat these 2 lines, just changing the host name for the different host name or the IP address here. In this instance we'll just leave it as we've got there, and then I'm just going to do a save, and that looks like it's been successfully saved. Let's just go back into Filr. I can test that connection here, and that looks like that's worked fine. I'm going to enable that for both internal and external users. I'll only have the option to enable external users if I've got the Power External User license, and then I'm just going to say OK. So both my internal and my external users should pick up their email address and mobile phone number for SMS one-time password automatically from either the LDAP directory or the database as you saw. But something I may want is my internal users. Typically you wouldn't do this for your external users. I may want my internal users to use a time-based one-time password, and we can use this with Google Authenticator, Microsoft Authenticator, or indeed our own authenticator, NetIQ Authenticator. Obviously they can all be downloaded from the App Store for your phone. So let's just go through how to enroll a phone for those apps. So for a user to enroll their phone for the TOTP, what I need to do is just hit the Advanced Authentication server without any additional URL, so just on the host name. So I'm just going to hit it on mydemo.biz, and you can see there that it's prompted me to log in. So in my instance I'm going to log in as rredgrave, type in my LDAP password, and you can see I'm into which authentication methods I've got enabled. Just be aware, if you haven't patched your advanced authentication, this may look a little bit different for you, but the principle is the same. You need to enroll. So you can see there it's automatically picked up my phone number. It hasn't got my email address. I think I most probably made a mistake somewhere. Let's just go back to the administration console to check that and have a look at my chains. There we go. I didn't set any users to be using email address, So let's just come down here and add all users to that and save that. So now if I come back here and I just do a refresh, yep, there we go, I've got my email one-time password coming through there automatically. So you can see there that based on what authentication methods I have enabled for me, it's going to pick up my email or SMS details automatically from the directory. What I want to do now is just set it up for the mobile app to give me a TOTP if I want to authenticate. So in this instance, I'm just going to click on Add, and you can see I've got the option here for TOTP. So if I select that, let's just call this my demo, and account name Redgrave. And down the bottom here you can see I've got the option Get QR Code. So let me just click on that, and you can see I've got a QR code which can be used by those apps, the Google, Microsoft or the NetIQ app, to register to give the one-time password. Let me just see if I can set that up so you can see it. So hopefully my iPhone will become visible. There we go. So let's just register some of these apps in here. This is the NetIQ app for doing this. Top right, I just press the plus. I can then point that at the QR code, and you can see that registers that coming in there. Let's just go and show you that with Google. I can press the plus in the bottom. I've got scanned QR code. So again, I'm just going to scan that QR code, and you can see I've got a number coming up there quite happily. And finally, for Microsoft Authenticator, if I just come in here, and I've got the plus in the top right, and in this instance I'm going to do Other, Google and so on, and again point at the QR code. You can see there that we've got that same number coming up. And one thing not to forget to do is click Save at the end of this, otherwise it won't register. So you can see there now I've got various methods registered. Let's just go and log into Filr. I'll come in on a new private window so I don't interrupt what I've got already. And I'll just log in here as myself, Redgrave and Novell. So what I'm hoping for here is that we get the drop down asking us which chain we want to use. Obviously if I've only got one chain enabled, which may be easiest, it's not going to ask me this question. I've just got this so I can show you. If I hadn't done that TOTP registration, I wouldn't see this option here. So let's just do the TOTP option first, and if I do next, that's going to ask me for a one-time password. So any one of those apps we saw before would work, but let's just go into Google Authenticator. So I've got an option to type in this number, so I'm going to go for 076883 and hit return, and hopefully that will take me in. There we go. That has worked. Let me just sign out here, and I'll just try doing the SMS one-time password. So let's just have a look here, and let's just log in as me again. And this time I'll take the drop down for SMS one-time password. I'll click next, and it wants me to do that, and you can see that SMS has just arrived. If I go and have a look at that, down the bottom there I've got 142948, and there we go. I have managed to authenticate there. And let's just try that email one-time password. So if I sign out there and try the email one, so Redgrave and and I'll just use the email one-time password, click next. It's prompting me for that, and hopefully in a moment I'll get my email notification. And there we go. Let's just read that and take the one-time password and pop that in there and click next. There we go, that's working. So let's just go and try that for my external users for the system. So let's just go and try that for an external user. Let me just go and... So let's just show you this working for an external user. Let's take this file here. I'm just going to share that with a user called Redgrave at acme.com, an external user. I can obviously set various view rights and expiry dates and set the message and so on, but in this instance I'm just going to save that. And in a moment that user is going to get a message for self sign up. There we go. If I read that, you can see I've got self-registration required. So let's just go in there, and here let's just call myself Robert Redders, and my phone number I'm going to use a UK number here, United Kingdom, and put in my mobile number. And specify the password. Let's just do a sign up. So that's been successful. And now it wants me to log in. So let's just get rid of that so you can see what's happening here. So if I go and log in here as that external user, hopefully it will pick up my phone number. You can see here I'm getting prompt from email or SMS. I'm not getting the TOTP option because I haven't enrolled for that. Let's just do the SMS one since I've got the phone up there. If I click next, it's prompted me for the one-time password, and you can see there that's just arrived. And if I come in here, I can see my TOTP password down the bottom there, which is 515695. Oh. Let's try that again, 515695. And there we go, that's got me in to see that. And similarly I can get the email one-time password working with that as well. So hopefully you can see there how we can set up the advanced authentication appliance to work with Filr to give MFA. If you've got Filr Advanced or the Power External User license, then you do get the advanced authentication server as an entitlement to Filr with that license. And obviously, as we said before, with the Power External User license, that extends MFA not just to your internal LDAP users, but also external users, invited users. Something I need to point out is that if you're just using external users without MFA, you'd have no need for a license for those users. They're free of charge, so you can continue using them without any cost whatsoever. Hopefully this has shown you how we can do MFA with Filr. Thank you for listening.